The space station hung in the dark corner of the galaxy, far from the warm light of Earth's sun. It was a lonely outpost, built on steel beams and glass walls, surrounded by silence. The only sound inside was the hum of machines and the low buzz of power running through the cables that lined the halls. Men and women worked there, keeping the station alive, guarding it, and sending reports back to human colonies. Among them was Tom, a young technician who had spent almost 2 years on this post. Tom liked the quiet of the station. He was not the kind of man who needed crowds or endless talk. He liked the steady order of his work. He liked to check circuits, tighten bolts, and read screens that glowed with soft green numbers. Life was simple and steady. At least it was until that night when everything changed. It began without warning. One moment, the lights were shining, and the engines hummed. The next moment, darkness filled the halls. The sound of the machines dropped into silence. Tom froze in his chair, his eyes wide as the station shuddered around him. Then came the low sound of the emergency alarm. Red lights blinked weakly, one by one, throwing long shadows across the walls. "System failure," the computer voice said in a dull tone. "Main power offline. Backup at 30%. Tom jumped from his chair and grabbed the nearest panel. His fingers moved across the controls, trying to bring life back into the grid. The screen only gave him error after error. He could feel the sweat on his neck. He had seen small failures before, but this was no small failure. The main reactor was offline, and the backup would not hold forever. Without full power, the outpost would lose air, heat, and even its shield against space radiation. The other crew rushed through the halls. He could hear voices echoing. "What happened? Is it a meltdown? How long do we have?" The fear in their words made his chest tighten. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. Tom opened his wrist communicator and called command. "This is Tom at Sector 12. Power is gone. Backup is low. We cannot fix it alone. We need outside help." There was a long pause. The voice that answered sounded calm, but heavy. "Help is on the way. A technician from nearby will arrive soon. Hold your position and keep the station stable." Tom frowned. "A technician?" he asked. It seemed strange. This was not a small circuit failure. This was the whole power core. He thought they would send an entire team of engineers, maybe even a warship to keep the place safe. But the voice only repeated, "Hold your position. The electrician will arrive soon." Hours passed like days. The red light painted every face in tired colors. Some crew members tried to rest, others tried to fix systems, but nothing worked. The main reactor was locked down by something deeper than normal errors. It was as if a hidden hand had switched it off and sealed it away. Tom sat near the docking bay, waiting. He had been told the technician would come through that door, and he wanted to see them the moment they arrived. His stomach was heavy with worry. He thought of his family back on Earth. He thought of the promise he had made to his father, to stay strong and useful wherever he was sent. He could not fail. Not now. The docking alarms rang at last. A small ship drifted toward the outpost, silver and quiet. It was not like the heavy human crafts Tom knew. It looked smoother, lighter, almost like a bird made of metal. He leaned closer to the window, eyes sharp. The ship docked with a soft thud, and the doors hissed open. Out stepped a tall woman. She wore a long coat, and her eyes glowed faintly in the red light of the emergency hall. She carried tools, but they were not like the wrenches or wires Tom used. They looked strange, thin rods and glowing devices that hummed as if alive. She looked around with calm eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was steady. "I am Myra," she said. "I was called to fix your power." Tom blinked. He felt the hairs on his arm rise. Something about her was different. Not only her tools, not only her calmness in this crisis, but the way the air itself seemed to bend around her. He forced himself to nod. "I'm Tom. Technician. You'll be working with me." She gave a small smile. "Good. Then show me your reactor." Tom led her through the dark halls. Crew members stopped and stared as she passed. Some whispered, wondering who she was. Tom could feel their eyes on her glowing tools and on the way she walked, like she had no fear of the shadows. When they reached the power core, the room was silent except for the hum of the failing backup. The reactor stood like a giant heart, but its lights were dark. Tom showed her the control panels. "We tried everything. Nothing works. It is locked." Myra stepped forward. She touched the wall near the reactor. To Tom's shock, sparks rose from the metal, bending toward her hand as if she called them. She closed her eyes for a moment, and the sparks danced like living things around her fingers. Tom stared. His breath caught in his throat. He had seen electricians before, but none who could command energy with their own touch. His mind raced with questions, but his mouth stayed shut. Myra finally opened her eyes. "This is no simple failure," she said softly. "Something sleeps inside your station. I will need time. And your trust." Tom swallowed hard. He felt the weight of her words. He did not know who she really was, but one thing was clear. Myra was no ordinary electrician. The space station was still weak, its halls dim with red lights, when Myra's presence began to stir whispers among the crew. Some men and women watched her with wide eyes as she walked past. Others muttered behind their hands, wondering who this strange woman was and why command had sent her alone. Nobody carried tools like hers. Nobody moved with that same calm step in the middle of a crisis. Tom stayed close to her, guiding her through the narrow halls. He felt the weight of every glance that followed them. He could sense the doubt in the crew. They wanted answers, and Tom wanted them too. But Myra's face showed nothing but quiet focus. It was as if she already knew where to go, as if the station itself was showing her the path. They stopped at the main conduit room. Thick cables ran along the walls, humming faintly with weak power. Tom bent over the panels, checking numbers on the dim screen. "Back up at 20% now," he said in a low voice. "If the core doesn't come back soon, life support will fail." Myra's eyes narrowed slightly. She placed one of her thin rods on the wall. It glowed bright blue, casting light across her calm face. The hum of the cables grew stronger, almost as if they responded to her presence. Tom stepped back, his chest tight with unease. He had spent years learning how to read machines, but this woman treated the machines as if they were alive. "You talk to them," Tom whispered without thinking. Myra glanced at him. "I listen," she said softly. Then she pulled the rod away, and the glow faded. "Your reactor is not broken. It is blocked. Something inside is refusing to let energy flow." Tom frowned. "Blocked by what?" Her eyes met his, and for the first time, Tom thought he saw a trace of worry in her calm face. "That is the question. If I open it, we may find something you are not ready to see." The words sent a chill through Tom's skin. He thought about the crew, about their lives resting on this thin line of failing power. They could not wait. Then we have no choice, he said. Myra studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. Show me the reactor chamber. They walked deeper into the station. The path grew darker as the emergency lights flickered. Pipes groaned above them. The sound of weak air pumps filled the silence. The crew they passed looked at Myra with fear and hope mixed together. Tom could almost hear their thoughts. Was this woman the one who would save them? Or was she only another stranger who would fail? At last they reached the great doors of the reactor chamber. They were thick and heavy, built to hold back any explosion. Tom pressed his code into the panel, and the doors opened with a low hiss. Inside stood the reactor, a giant cylinder reaching up into the shadows of the chamber. Normally it glowed bright with energy, pulsing like a living heart. Now it stood dark and silent, its panels cold. The only light came from the red glow of emergency lamps. Myra walked forward slowly. Her coat brushed against the steel floor. She touched the air with her hands, as if feeling something invisible. Tom followed behind her, unsure what to say. He felt like he was watching something sacred, something far beyond human skill. She stopped at the base of the reactor. For a long moment, she stood still. Then she turned to Tom. "I will need silence," she said. Tom nodded. He stepped back, giving her space. Myra knelt and pressed both hands against the steel surface of the reactor. The patterns on her skin began to glow faintly, thin lines of light moving across her arms like rivers of fire. Tom gasped and gripped the railing beside him. He had never seen anything like it. It was not a trick of the lights. Her skin truly shone with power. The reactor groaned. Sparks jumped from the panels. Tom felt the air grow heavy, like a storm building inside the room. He wanted to speak, but he held his tongue. Myra's eyes were closed. Her face showed no pain, only deep focus. Minutes passed, though to Tom they felt like hours. Finally Myra opened her eyes. The glow on her skin faded, leaving her looking almost normal again. She stood and faced him. "There is something buried inside this machine," she said. "It is not human. It is old, and it has locked itself around your power. It is waiting." Tom's heart pounded. Waiting for what? Her answer was quiet. For the right time to wake. Tom shook his head. His mind raced with questions, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Then can you stop it?" Myra looked back at the reactor. "I can try. But it will not be simple. I cannot do this alone. I will need you." Tom felt the weight of her words. He was only a technician, a man who fixed wires and read screens. Yet this woman spoke to him as if he held part of the answer. He wanted to doubt her, but when he looked at the cold, dead reactor and thought of the hundreds of lives on the station, he knew doubt was a luxury he could not afford. "I'll help you," he said firmly. Myra gave a small nod. "Then we begin at once. But before I show you more, you must understand something." She stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his. "I am not like you. I am not only human." The words hit Tom like a strike of lightning. He stared at her glowing tools, at the memory of her skin shining with light. He had suspected it, but hearing her say it made his chest tighten. "You're an alien," Tom whispered. Myra did not look away. "Yes. And if you trust me, I may save your people." Tom's mind spun, but his choice was already made. He thought of the failing power, of the frightened faces of the crew, of the silence waiting in the black void outside the walls. He could not turn her away, no matter what she was. Then let's save them, he said. For the first time, Myra's lips curved into a true smile. It was not the calm, careful smile she had worn before, but something warmer, something almost human. She turned back to the reactor and raised her glowing rod once more. And in that moment, Tom knew his life on the outpost would never again be simple. The silence inside the reactor chamber was heavy. Tom's heart still raced from Myra's words. She had admitted the truth he had already guessed. She was not human. She was something else, something hidden beneath human skin. Yet she stood calm, her glowing rod humming in her hand, her eyes watching the silent machine in front of her. Tom tried to steady his breath. He had never thought he would meet an alien, not here on a quiet outpost, not while doing simple repair duty. Humanity had dreamed of aliens for centuries, but most encounters so far had been with strange distant signals or ruins of lifeless machines. This was different. Myra was alive, and she was here. Tom stepped closer to her. "If you are not human, then what are you?" he asked carefully. Myra did not answer at once. Instead, she pulled off her heavy coat. Beneath it, her skin shimmered faintly. Strange patterns ran across her arms and shoulders, glowing softly like lines of energy. They curved in shapes that reminded Tom of circuits on a board, yet they moved as if alive. Tom stared, his mouth dry. The glow was not painted, not artificial. It was part of her. She stood straight, showing him what she was without fear. "I come from far beyond your colonies," Myra said at last. "My people were once masters of living energy. We built cities that shone brighter than stars, and machines that grew like forests. But those times are gone. Now only a few of us remain. I walk among your kind to learn, to watch, and sometimes, to help." Her voice carried no pride, only a quiet sadness. Tom felt a weight in his chest. He had expected fear or anger to rise inside him, but instead he felt something else: curiosity and a strange respect. He nodded slowly. "And now you are here, fixing our station." Myra's glowing patterns dimmed a little, as if her body grew tired. She rested her hand on the cold steel of the reactor. "Not fixing. Protecting. This reactor is more than a machine. Something older lies inside it. Something that should not be awake." Tom frowned. "You said it was blocked." "Yes," Myra said softly. "Because something sealed itself here long before your people built this outpost. Your engineers did not know. They built the reactor around a sleeping machine. Now that machine stirs, and it holds your power locked." Her words made Tom's blood run cold. He looked at the reactor with new eyes, no longer seeing it as just human steel and wires. The thought of an ancient alien machine inside it made his skin crawl. "Can it be destroyed?" he asked. Myra looked at him. "Not easily. It is strong, older than your world. But it can be weakened, and it can be forced back to sleep. I can do it, but only with your help. The machine will fight back. I cannot stand alone." Tom's throat tightened. He was only a technician, not a soldier, not a hero. Yet when he looked into Myra's steady eyes, he felt a spark of courage. She trusted him enough to ask for his help. He could not turn away. "I'll do whatever I can," he said. Myra's lips curved into a small smile. She lifted her glowing rod and pressed it against the reactor wall. Sparks burst across the steel. The lines on her skin brightened, running from her hands to her shoulders like rivers of fire. Tom shielded his eyes from the light. The air grew heavy, and the floor trembled under his boots. "Myra," Tom said in alarm, "what are you doing?" "I am speaking to it," she answered, her voice echoing strangely. "I am telling it that it cannot rise." Tom stared in awe. He could almost feel the struggle in the air, as if two forces pushed against each other through unseen currents. The reactor groaned, metal straining under pressure. Lights above flickered and crackled. Then, with a sudden snap, Myra pulled her hand back. The glow dimmed, and the room fell still again. She staggered slightly, breathing hard. Tom rushed forward, catching her arm. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "Not yet. But it is strong. Stronger than I expected. This will not be easy." Tom guided her to a nearby bench and made her sit. He studied her glowing skin, the strange patterns still faintly pulsing. She looked tired, but not broken. Her eyes still burned with quiet fire. He sat across from her. "Why me?" he asked at last. "Why ask me to help you? I'm just a technician. There are better people here." Myra's gaze softened. "Because you listen. The others look at me and see only fear or doubt. You saw me and still stood close. Machines, like people, need trust to work together. I cannot fight this machine alone, but with you, I may find balance." Her words struck deep in Tom's heart. He thought of his life, the long days fixing broken wires, the nights staring out into space and wondering if he was wasting his years. Nobody had ever spoken to him like this before. Nobody had ever told him that his trust, his steady hands, could mean the difference between life and death. He nodded firmly. "Then we fight it together." Myra closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. Then she stood again, tall and steady. She touched the reactor one last time. "It is quiet now, but it will not stay that way. When it wakes, the whole station will shake. Tell your people to prepare. The storm is coming." Tom swallowed hard. He thought of the crew outside, waiting in fear. He thought of the silence of the galaxy pressing against the station walls. And he thought of Myra, standing before him with her glowing skin and calm eyes. She was no ordinary electrician. She was something far greater, something he had never imagined. And now, for better or worse, humanity's fate was tied to hers. The space station floated in silence, its great halls dim under the weak red lights. Every crew member felt the weight of fear pressing on their shoulders. The backup systems still kept them alive, but everyone knew they were running out of time. If the main reactor did not return, the cold of space would seep in, the air would thin, and the shields would fade. Tom walked beside Myra through the quiet corridors. Her glowing patterns were faint now, hidden beneath her coat again, but Tom could still sense the strange power inside her. He noticed the crew watching her as they passed. Their whispers filled the air, though none dared speak too loud. Who is she? Why is she alone? Can she really fix it? Tom could not answer them. He only knew Myra was not ordinary. They reached the command room where the captain and senior officers waited. The captain, a stern woman named Hale, stood tall beside the dim screens. She looked Myra up and down with sharp eyes. "You are the technician command sent?" Hale asked. Myra inclined her head. "Yes. My name is Myra. I have studied your reactor. It is not broken by your hands. Something else lies inside it. Something old." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Hale folded her arms. Explain. Myra's calm gaze swept across the room. Long before your kind built this station, another machine was buried here. It has slept for ages, hidden under layers of rock and steel. Your engineers built the reactor without knowing. Now the machine stirs. It is holding your power locked for its own purpose. If it wakes fully, it will not stop with this station. It may spread beyond. The words sent a cold wave through the room. Tom saw fear flicker in the eyes of the officers. Someone muttered, "An alien machine? Here." Hale slammed her hand against the table. "This is not the time for myths. Are you telling me our lives hang on some ghost story?" Myra's face stayed calm. She raised her hand, and for a brief moment the glowing lines on her skin pulsed beneath the sleeve of her coat. "You have seen the power drop. You have seen your own systems fail without reason. That is no myth. That is proof. And if I had not come, you would already be lost." The room fell silent. Even Hale's stern face softened slightly, though her eyes remained hard. She turned toward Tom. "You were with her. Do you believe this story?" Tom straightened his shoulders. His heart raced, but his voice was firm. "Yes, Captain. I saw it myself." Myra touched the reactor. The sparks bent toward her. "The machine is real. She is the only one who can stop it." Hale's eyes lingered on him, testing his words. At last she nodded. "Very well. Then what do you need from us?" Myra stepped forward. "I will need space to work. I will need tools, both mine and yours. And I will need your trust. But more than that, you must prepare yourselves. If I fight this machine, it will fight back. The station will shake. Systems will fail. You must be ready to protect your people." The officers shifted uncomfortably. One of them whispered, "If it's that strong, how can she hope to win?" Myra turned her head toward him. "Because I am not human alone. My people once mastered energy itself. I still carry that gift. But even with my strength, I cannot do this without one of you beside me. I have chosen Tom." All eyes turned to Tom. Heat rushed into his face. He opened his mouth but no words came out. Hale raised an eyebrow. "Tom? He is a good technician, but why him?" Myra's voice was steady. "Because he listens. Because he trusts. Machines respond to balance, to will, to steady hands. Tom carries that. Without him, I will fail." Tom felt the weight of their stares pressing down on him, but he forced himself to lift his chin. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll stand with her." The captain studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Then prepare. Both of you." Myra bowed her head in thanks, then turned and left the command room. Tom followed, his heart pounding. He could hardly believe what he had just agreed to. He was not a soldier or a leader. He was just a man who fixed wires. And yet, Myra trusted him to help fight something that could destroy them all. As they walked back toward the reactor chamber, Tom finally asked, "Why me, really? Is it only because I trust you? Or is there more?" Myra's eyes softened. "When I touched the reactor, I felt your presence near me. Your mind did not resist. Your spirit reached out, even without knowing. The machine is strong. To resist it, I need more than my own power. I need a bridge, someone who can carry human will into the fight. That someone is you." Tom shook his head slowly, trying to grasp her words. He had never thought of himself as special. But hearing Myra speak filled him with a strange strength. Maybe he was not just a technician after all. They entered the reactor chamber again. The great machine stood silent, yet Tom could feel a faint pulse under the floor, like a sleeping heart waiting to wake. Myra walked to the base of the reactor and placed her glowing rod against the steel. "Listen closely, Tom," she said. "When I push against this machine, it will push back. It will try to break me. When that happens, I will need your voice. You must speak through the systems, keep the human line steady. If your will wavers, the machine will win." Tom nodded, his throat dry. "I'll be ready." Myra looked at him with a faint smile. "I believe you." She closed her eyes, and the glowing patterns across her skin brightened once more. The chamber filled with light as if stars were being born inside her. The reactor groaned, its panels shivering under unseen pressure. The floor vibrated beneath Tom's boots. Tom gripped the control board with both hands, his eyes locked on Myra. He felt the storm building. He knew this was only the beginning. And in that moment, the warning was clear: the ancient machine would not stay asleep much longer. The station shook with a low rumble that spread through the walls like distant thunder. Tom held tightly to the railing as the floor trembled beneath his boots. The dim red lights flickered, shadows jumping across the walls. The reactor chamber groaned as if some great beast inside it was turning in its sleep. Myra stood in front of the silent reactor, her hands pressed against the cold steel. The glowing lines on her skin brightened, stretching across her arms and shoulders like living fire. Her face was calm, but her body trembled slightly under the growing force pressing back against her. Tom's heart pounded. He could feel the air itself grow heavy. It was as if the chamber had become a battlefield, though no weapons were drawn. The machine inside the reactor was waking, and it was angry. "Tom," Myra called, her voice sharp but steady. "Hold the control board. Keep the human system steady. If they fall, I will have nothing to anchor me." Tom rushed to the board, his fingers flying over the failing screens. Numbers flashed warnings. Power surged and fell again and again. He gritted his teeth and forced the lines stable. Every part of him wanted to panic, but he remembered Myra's words: machines responded to balance, to will, to steady hands. He had to be strong. The reactor let out a deep groan. A panel cracked open, spilling sparks across the floor. The station shuddered harder, and alarms screamed through the halls. Outside the chamber, Tom could hear the frightened voices of the crew echoing through the corridors. "What is happening? Are we losing the core? Get the shields back up." Myra's voice rose over the noise. "It is awake." The words sent a chill down Tom's spine. He stared at the reactor in horror. From the cracks in its steel walls, light began to leak out. It was not the bright blue glow of human energy. It was darker, deeper, like molten fire mixed with shadows. The light pulsed, steady as a heartbeat. Tom gripped the board tighter. "What do we do?" he shouted. Myra's glowing eyes snapped open. "We fight it now, before it grows stronger." She raised both hands, and the patterns across her skin flared with blinding brightness. Energy leapt from her fingers, striking the reactor with a sound like a thunderclap. The chamber filled with sparks that danced like wild stars. The reactor shook violently, and the dark light inside pushed back against her power. Tom shielded his eyes, but he did not leave his post. He kept the system steady, feeding Myra's strength through the human lines. He felt the pressure building, like waves crashing against a fragile wall. Myra's voice cut through the storm. Tom. Speak to it. Command the systems. Tell them to resist. Tom's throat was dry, but he obeyed. He leaned close to the board, his voice low but firm. Hold steady. Hold against it. We are human. This is our station. You will not fall. The screens flickered. For a moment, the numbers stabilized. Tom felt a strange connection, as if the machines were listening to him. He poured his will into his voice, speaking again. Stay strong. We are not afraid. The reactor roared in answer. A section of the steel wall split open, and a massive arm of black metal burst out, covered in glowing red veins. The arm swung wildly, smashing into the floor with a crash that shook the entire chamber. Sparks rained down. Tom stumbled back, fear surging through him, but Myra stepped forward without flinching. She lifted her glowing rod, and lightning leapt from it, striking the metal arm. The arm screamed with a sound that was not human, a sound that rattled Tom's bones. It pulled back, but another arm pushed through the wall, then another. The ancient machine inside the reactor was no longer asleep. It was rising. Myra! Tom shouted. It's breaking free. Her voice was fierce. Then we must bind it now. She spread her arms wide. The glow from her skin filled the chamber, bright enough to chase away every shadow. Energy poured from her body into the walls, into the floor, into the heart of the reactor. The alien machine thrashed against her light, but she held firm. Tom threw himself back onto the board, his fingers slamming the controls. He linked every remaining system into Myra's flow life support, shields, even the backup engines. He felt the station's power bend and strain, but he pushed harder. His will joined hers, human and alien bound together. The chamber shook like a storm at sea. The crew outside cried out as lights burst and doors rattled. Yet Tom and Myra stood in the center of it, holding the line against the ancient force. Then the voice came. It was not a sound in the air but a whisper in Tom's mind, cold and deep. Leave. You cannot stop me. I was here before you. I will be here after you. Tom staggered, his hand gripping the board. He wanted to shout, but his voice stuck in his throat. Myra's eyes snapped toward him. Do not listen, she commanded. It speaks lies to break your will. Tom forced his breath steady. He thought of his family on Earth, of his father's words, of the promise he had made never to give up. He straightened his back and shouted into the board, his voice fierce. You will not have this station. You will not break us. We are human, and we endure. The whisper in his mind hissed and faded. The numbers on the screen steadied again. Myra's glow flared brighter, her face shining with determination. The reactor screamed, its dark arms thrashing wildly. But the light pouring from Myra and the steady will of Tom held firm. Together, they forced the arms back, sealing the cracks one by one. Finally, with a final burst of light, the chamber fell still. The dark arms crumbled into ash, and the reactor groaned before sinking back into silence. Myra staggered, nearly falling, but Tom rushed to catch her. Her skin was dim again, the glowing lines fading, but she was alive. Her breath came in heavy gasps. It is not destroyed, she whispered. Only pushed back. But we have bought time. Tom nodded, his chest rising and falling with relief. Then we'll keep fighting. Together. Myra's lips curved into the faintest smile. Yes. Together. Outside the chamber, the crew slowly gathered, their faces filled with awe and fear. They had felt the storm shake the station, but now they saw Tom standing with Myra, both alive, both unbroken. Whispers spread through the hall. Hope returned, small but burning bright. Tom looked at Myra and knew the truth in his heart. She was no ordinary electrician. She was a warrior of light, and he was her anchor. And the battle for the station had only just begun. The silence in the reactor chamber was heavy after the storm of light and fire. The crew whispered nervously outside, unsure if it was safe to enter. Tom still held Myra, her weight pressing against him. She was weak but steady, her breath slowing as she recovered. "Stay with me," Tom said quietly. "You gave everything in there." Myra opened her eyes. The glow across her skin was faint now, like fading embers. "I am not gone yet. But we must not wait too long. The machine will rise again. And this time, it may not stop." Tom nodded, though fear still gnawed at him. He knew the truth: what they had faced was only the beginning. Captain Reyna entered with 2 crew members. Her face was stern, but her eyes held questions she could not hide. She looked from Tom to Myra, then to the reactor that now sat silent but cracked. "What happened in here?" she asked firmly. Tom opened his mouth, but Myra raised her hand first. "The station was built over something ancient. Not just a machine. A weapon. It is alive, and it wants freedom. We stopped it, but only for a time." The crew gasped. Reyna's face tightened. "Are you telling me the station is sitting on top of a hostile machine?" "Yes," Myra said calmly. "But there is more. This machine is not just a danger to you. It is a danger to every world it touches." Reyna's hands clenched. "Then we destroy it?" Myra shook her head. "It cannot be destroyed so easily. Its core is older than your history. To end it, we must cut off its connection to the others of its kind." The words hung in the air like ice. Tom frowned. "Others? You mean there are more of these things?" Myra looked at him, her face grave. "Yes. It was not built alone. There are thousands, buried across the stars. Each one waits for the moment to awaken. If this one calls to them, the war begins." The crew fell silent. Fear rippled through them, but Tom forced his voice to stay steady. "Then we stop the message. We cut it off before it reaches the others." Myra nodded. "That is the task. But it will not be simple. The machine is clever. It will try to speak through your systems, your signals, even your minds. Already, you heard its voice." Tom remembered the cold whisper in his head. His skin prickled at the memory. "Yes. I heard it. It tried to break me." Reyna turned to him sharply. "You heard it too?" Tom met her eyes. "Yes. But I didn't give in. I won't." Myra placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is why you are important, Tom. The machine cannot bend your will easily. With you, we may stand a chance." Reyna exhaled slowly, then looked at her crew. "Prepare the shields and lock every signal line. Nothing goes out without my order." The crew rushed to obey. Hours passed, and the station moved under emergency power. Tom walked beside Myra through the darkened halls. Crew members stared at them as they passed, some with fear, some with hope. In the control chamber, Myra studied the displays. Strange patterns flickered across the screens, like signals trying to break through the walls. "It is speaking again," she said. Tom leaned closer. The symbols were not human language, yet something in him felt the meaning. It was not words, but intent. It was calling. He clenched his fists. It's trying to reach the others. Myra's face hardened. Then we must answer before they do. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small shard of crystal. It pulsed with faint blue light. She placed it on the table. "This is my key," she said. "It will let us speak back. But it requires both of us to use it. Human strength and my power together." Tom stared at the shard, feeling its energy like a heartbeat. "What do we say?" Myra's eyes locked on his. "We tell the others that this one is broken. That it is not worth waking. If we are lucky, they will ignore it. If not, we prepare for war." Tom took a deep breath. "Then let's speak." The chamber dimmed as Myra placed her hand on the shard. She nodded to Tom, and he set his hand beside hers. A surge of energy raced through him, not painful but heavy, as if the weight of the stars pressed down on his chest. The screens flared to life. Patterns poured across them, faster than his eyes could follow. A deep hum filled the room. Tom's mind spun, but then the whisper came again. "You dare to answer me? You are nothing. You are dust before my storm." Tom clenched his teeth. "No. We are more than dust. We are human, and we do not bow." The shard glowed brighter under their hands. Myra's voice joined his, firm and clear. "This one is broken. Leave it. There is no strength here for you to use." The whisper grew colder. "You cannot lie to me. I feel your fire. I will call, and they will answer." Tom felt anger burn in his chest. He leaned closer to the shard. "You will not. You will stay silent. Because if you call, we will fight. And we will win." The shard flared, and for a moment the whisper faltered. Then came a deeper rumble, not one voice but many. "Who speaks?" Tom's breath caught. The signal had reached the others. 1,000 voices stirred in the darkness. Myra gripped his hand tighter. "Stay steady. Do not show fear." Tom swallowed and raised his voice. "I speak for humans. This one is broken. It is nothing. Do not waste your time here." The voices murmured, echoing like storms across the stars. For a long moment, nothing else came. Then the deep rumble faded, leaving only silence. The shard dimmed, and the screens returned to normal. Tom collapsed into the chair, his body shaking. Myra sat beside him, her own face pale. "Did it work?" Tom asked. Myra's eyes were distant, as if listening to something far away. Then she nodded slowly. "For now, yes." They turned away. The call was delayed. But it is not over. They will grow curious again. And when they do, they will come. Tom let out a long breath. His body ached, but inside he felt something else rising, a fire, a determination. "Then let them come," he said. "We'll be ready." Myra looked at him, and for the first time her eyes softened into a true smile. "Yes. We will be ready. Together." The station was quiet now, but the air was thick with tension. Every crew member moved cautiously, checking systems and watching the reactor chamber from a distance. The emergency lights had returned to dim steady brightness, but the memory of the storm still haunted everyone. Tom walked beside Myra, keeping close. Her glowing patterns were faint but steady now, and her breathing had slowed. She still carried the weight of what they had just faced, but her eyes held determination. Do you think it will try again? Tom asked quietly. Myra's gaze swept the room. Yes. The machine never forgets. It will test us again. But now, you understand something important, Tom. Tom frowned. What? Strength alone is not enough, she said. Machines, even ancient ones, are like mirrors. They reflect the spirit of those who face them. Alone, I have power, but without your will, your courage, your trust, it cannot be controlled. You are human, and that is why we succeeded. Tom felt a surge of pride mixed with awe. He had never thought of himself as important. Yet here he was, standing beside an alien with the power to shape energy itself, and together they had held back a force older than humanity itself. Captain Reyna entered with her officers. Her face was stern, but the corners of her lips twitched with something almost like relief. She studied Myra and then looked at Tom. You did it, she said softly. Both of you. I did not think this was possible, but you proved me wrong. Tom shook his head. We did it together, he said. Myra has the power, but the machine responded to human will. It listened to our determination. Myra smiled faintly. Yes. Human courage is stronger than most realize. Machines like this one can test, they can threaten, but they cannot break what is alive and willing. That is why humanity endures. Reyna nodded. Then we prepare for the next stage. We must strengthen the station, seal the reactor, and ensure no one can awaken it again. Myra turned to Tom. Will you stay with me? Tom blinked. Stay with you? Yes. The machine will not stop here. Other stations, other systems may be at risk. I can guide you, and you can provide the anchor it needs. We can protect humanity together. Tom's heart raced. He had spent so long in quiet halls fixing wires and reading screens. He had never imagined a life like this, standing against forces from beyond the stars. And yet, he felt ready. Yes, he said. I will stay. I will help. Myra's smile grew. Good. Then we begin. For weeks, the crew worked under her guidance. They reinforced the reactor chamber, built shields around the core, and linked every system to a protective network. Myra taught Tom to feel the energy, to sense how the machines responded to will and focus. Slowly, he began to understand what she meant. One night, as they monitored the station, Myra removed her heavy coat. The patterns on her skin glowed softly in the dim light, and Tom could see the true beauty of her energy. She moved with calm precision, adjusting circuits and channels of power. You see, she said, the strength is not just in my hands. It is in the courage to act, the will to endure, and the trust between us. That is what humanity carries. Tom nodded. I understand now. Our minds, our hearts, they are as strong as our machines. She glanced at him with something like pride. And that is why I am here. Not to conquer, but to witness what humans can achieve when they do not fear the unknown. Tom smiled faintly. Then let's show them. Months passed. The station thrived under their combined effort. The crew grew stronger, more confident. They learned to trust in Myra's abilities, but also in their own courage. Each system they stabilized, each repair they made, was a small victory against the ancient forces waiting in silence across the stars. One evening, as Tom and Myra walked through the corridor, the stars outside shone brightly. The silence was no longer heavy but full of promise. You know, Tom said softly, I never imagined humans could do something like this. Facing an ancient machine. I thought we would fail. Myra looked at him, her glowing patterns gentle in the light. Many would have. But humans endure because they do not rely only on strength. They rely on spirit, on will, on courage. That is why you stood beside me. That is why humanity can triumph. Tom smiled. Then we are ready for whatever comes next. Myra nodded. Yes. And remember, you are not alone. Together, human will and alien knowledge can protect worlds. You may be ordinary to some, Tom, but today you are extraordinary. Not because of power, but because of courage. Tom felt warmth in his chest. He had spent his life thinking he was ordinary. Yet here, in the dark corners of space, with the fate of the station and perhaps more at stake, he had proven the truth of her words. The next morning, the crew gathered in the main hall. Captain Reyna addressed them, her voice calm but strong. This station has faced a force older than our history. We have survived because of courage, skill, and trust. We will continue to protect our home and our people. And we will do so together. Myra stood beside Tom, her presence steady and reassuring. Tom realized then that the alien woman, the one who had seemed so otherworldly and strange at first, had become a part of the human effort. Her knowledge, her strength, and his own courage had blended into something stronger than either could have achieved alone. The crew looked around, their fear replaced with pride. They were part of something greater. Humanity was alive and strong, not because of machines or weapons, but because of the spirit that refused to yield. Later, as Tom watched the stars outside the glass walls of the station, Myra beside him, he understood what she had meant all along. Power alone cannot save a world. Knowledge alone cannot protect it. Only courage, only human spirit, can turn even the greatest threat into a victory. Myra's soft voice broke the silence. This is only the beginning. But humanity has already proven it can triumph. Tom nodded, smiling. Then we will face it. And we will win. Together. The stars outside shone brighter that night, as if reflecting the courage within the hearts of those who dared to face the unknown. The ancient machine slept for now, but the lesson remained clear: human spirit, allied with wisdom and trust, could overcome even the oldest and strongest of threats. And in the quiet of the station, Tom knew the truth that would carry him forward: humanity was not powerless. Humanity was unstoppable.